What's up?
Jarvis mentioned VR. Do we have like a regular first person
Yes.
test with?
Yes, we had another programmer last quarter that was creating that. It has, it's a little janky at times, but
As
we
long as
also,
can test it, sequencing and stuff.
yes, you can test and run around with it.
Okay.
Granted, I'd like to have someone focus on and just make a first person version of it
Yeah.
that you can run
I'm
around
more
with.
worried about for testing and getting stuff.
Yeah, yeah, the first person guy is mainly just for testing. We, since the showcase is, the first showcase is on the 18th, VR is our primary focus.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure that it's possible.
It is.
Needing a headset.
There are certain interactions that are a little wonky when you're trying to do it because it kind of like moves the hand out as you click.
Gotcha.
But there will be VR headsets, and you should be able to test some of the stuff regardless of having the player. The task would be the only one that could be a little difficult.
And we're going to want to kind of test with both just to make sure everything's working right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So coordinating with me and then coming in to use the headsets will be the biggest thing. All right. Jarvis team.
All right, waterfall.
Waterfall. All right. So there's two main systems in play. As we talked about with, as Alan mentioned, the main mechanic of the game is working. What we need is content. Right now we have more or less a single haunt. We have a couple tasks. Both need to be done. I'm not going to cover sequences right now because I can send you videos on how to make sequences, but most of the haunts are made with sequences, which are just little, like, again, they're kind of like animated bits you can create. They're very easy to make. So for example, we can go over. Like here's one of the sequences. Should be familiar. People should be able to make something like this. It's hard to hear it on mine, but in this case, it just plays an audio right there of someone banging on a door. Which in this case, if somebody runs into this trigger box, it plays one of these three sequences. Now, what I'm going to cover both is one, how do you make your own haunts? And two, how do you make your own tasks? Well, the haunts are fairly straightforward. All you have to do is create a new blueprint. It could be any blueprint. It doesn't actually have to inherit from any class. We're doing this all component-based this time. You just have to make any actor you wish. So if you're filming Unreal, you just make any actor you wish. In this case, what I am making, sorry, I hate fucking my trackpad. All I did was make a brand new blueprint. I made a collision box, which should be familiar to most of you guys. And then what you do is that if you want something to be a haunt, you add this component called BPC haunt. That's it. Once you create, yeah, that's all you have to do is just add this component. When this component is added, you will denote the level of this haunt. There's 1 through 3 right now, I believe. And that's up to us what we decide to be a level 1 haunt to level 3 haunt. Level 1 haunt should be minor things like a chair moves or you hear like a whisper or something. Maybe only we actually see the girl at level 2 or 3. That's up to you. But the idea here is that what level haunt you set it as, the haunts can't trigger until the player has gone to that haunt level, which we can decide in the game mode, which is also for the designers in here. We have to decide when we want to increase that haunt. Is it by a certain passage of time, by a certain number of tasks? It's up to us. For the 18th, we want to just keep it simple. So we could say after X number of tasks, we just increase the haunt level. That's it. That's all you have to do. Now, your job is, so in this case, what I did in this one, I create an array of sequences. I randomly pick one. And from the haunt component, all you have to do is just say play haunt and give it a level sequence you want to play. Now, what will happen is that when it goes into this function, if the haunt is not active, which means the level isn't active yet, it has been turned on, it just gets ignored. Cool. In this case, all I'm going to do is just play the haunt. And then at one point, you can call back and just say, I want to deactivate the haunt. This is just a general example. This is also the functionality if we ever want to change the haunt level. All you have to do is just say get game mode and change whatever the new haunt level is. If you want to get the current haunt level, let's say you want your blueprint to work differently, based on what level it is, you can ask, all right, what's the current level? That's it. So if you're familiar with sequences, create a sequence, create a blueprint, add this component, and then it's up to you when you want to play this haunt. And it will only activate if the current level is active. Sound good?
So
So
the thing you remember about this is that this is just the blueprint side of it, right?
Yeah.
You're still, if you're doing a haunt, you still have to create a sequence.
Mhm.
Or the audio, or whatever that goes in, just to keep the player.
The sequence itself is instantiable.
And anytime you're making a sequence, that sequence is like a scene. It's a little moment, but the moment should be as elegant as you can make it, right? So, it's a difference between like saying, hey, I just did a translation of this thing, you translated of Y, and I'm done. That's not, I mean, technically that's a haunt, but that's a terrible haunt, right? The good haunt would be, hey, as I come through, I'm over here fixing the, one of the game machines. And while I'm there, this starts to like shake. And then, when I turn and have a recast over here, it goes and moves around and then stops, right? So think about every time you create a haunt, what's the narrative of that haunt? How does it start up? What's it like when it's moving full force? And then how does it come to completion? And the other thing is most of these should be happening when the player is far away from you, right? We don't want the player to interrupt with their sequences. We don't want the player to have the opportunity to interrupt and keep it moving. We want them to go, what the fuck just happened? And then go over and investigate it. And maybe there's another trigger box that makes something else happen somewhere else. That's all. But you should always be thinking about what's the sequence doing? How does it work? How does it power up? How does it power down? And what makes it interesting?
So yeah, the sequences is just the animation track. So if you're making animation tracks, similar idea, but you just do it in the level. Now, for some of you, you could get clever. In theory, you don't actually have to do a sequence to do a haunt. As long as you add a component and then create a level for yourself, you could do the functionality here just all in Blueprint, in theory. You just need to stick with this level system, which is what is the haunt level for my current haunt, and then work off that. So the haunts are by far the simplest thing to work with. Yes.
So this one you have to sequence the options. Do you want that
You don't.
to be even more or?
No, it's literally up to you. So obviously, once we create enough haunts, I'm hoping by the next week, everybody create enough haunts, we can look at them, decide how we want to organize it. We could do this, this was just an example of just randomly picking one. We could have, obviously, we'll probably have haunts that are fixed, things that we want the player to see. So and later, hopefully during the second half, where we want to create some narrative. So the haunts could be a tool for narrative.
And I would say for the first pass, everyone should be just doing one haunt.
Yes.
And make sure that haunt works well. And once we have a stack of haunts, we can go back and decide maybe some of these will be playing in different situations. But for now, the minimum viable version of this would be, every time you do a haunt, it's one thing.
I think they're good goals that, let's say for the next week, basically everybody get a week, make one haunt. And then we'll bring it in and at stand up, we'll see what everybody's haunt looks like. That would be probably not a bad idea. And if theory, if everybody works on it, that's going to give us what, another 8 to 10 haunts right off the bat, which would be great. Because right now we have like a couple.
And those haunts will be connected one way or another to tasks.
Yes.
So we'll talk about tasks.
Are all the assets for this already
Well, and also,
here paid for if we make our own kind of thing?
What's that?
The assets we're using for the haunts are
Yeah.
all they're already, you said?
Yeah, all the assets that you need are in here. We have some more if we want. Obviously, we want to use what we make more often. Like for example, the Ghost Girl is a store-bought app. She'll work just fine for what we're doing. Later on, we'd like to use our own stuff, but all the assets are homemade here that you see in this place. They're very well done.
and if you have an idea for a haunt that we don't have an asset for, then just send a message
Yeah.
to this board. We can put somebody on, they can be asset.
Like one of the haunts I want to make once I have some time is I want to make a creepy like message appearing on all the monitors that keep flashing over and over.
Oh,
So
that's the other thing is that some of the haunts are things like stuff being written on whiteboards.
yes,
There are things happening on the monitor. So Once you read the documents,
Yeah.
things start to make more sense.
We do have the mechanic in here as well that you can create your own material, put it on here, but we actually have the material where a player can walk in here and draw on this whiteboard. We have a marker and you can actually erase it as well. It's very cool. Now that time to sequence be a little bit difficult, but I would say just make a material and we'll make the material appear. But a player could walk up and then erase it later. Yes. Correct. I finally came up with a solution, and what it is that there's a whole bunch of little collision boxes on the whiteboard. When the player's hand passes through all of them, the board is wiped. So that was my quick and easy solution. Now for tasks, the slightly harder section, but same idea. So similar setup that we're doing a component-driven system. So let me do, for example, the light switch task. Yeah, it is please someone help me and get a better model. All right. So same idea. You create your own blueprint. You add a component called BPC task. Now, if there are certain objects you want to be manipulate the player, I have it online where what class you want to inherit from to get the work, but for just menial tasks, we have already a whole bunch of interactable objects in there. You need a new custom one, reach out, I'll walk you through. But again, you'll create a new task. Works similar idea. Now, we'll go over a couple pieces. So the first one is this. Inside the project folder, there's a Excel sheet. The tasks are laid out on here. Sorry for the brightness. All our tasks is actually created and controlled by this Excel sheet. The idea here is that you create a new task, you give it a unique name. It has a task number, which is currently what's controlling everything. The first task gets placed, task 1, and then once that's completed, then task 2, task 3, task 4, task 5. What's that? Yes. Yeah, so we're pulling exactly from the Excel sheet. So someone can come in and we can decide here what tasks we want to do in order. We will later, for the time being, we're just going to do singular tasks. So just task 1 through whatever X. Later on, we have the system in place that tasks could have subtasks. You have to complete all these subtasks to complete a single task, which then we'll need to probably reorder how we do this. But however you create this will get automatically imported into the project and sorted based on the numbers you have. Now, the most important detail is actually the task number, and task name and task number. Everything else is really not being used right now, except for this as well. This is the message that will appear on the tablet. So like the hello new one, what you saw from me from Monday, it was pulling from this. Now, one caveat, which of how Excel works, you can't have Excel open and then run the project and have it read from it. Excel can't be read while it's also being written to. So once you make the edits, you do need to save and then close it down and then run the project.
So, and this is, Excel is a text-based file.
Yeah, I don't
So,
say.
and multiple people have it checked out at the same time?
They don't have, I mean, each one can just open their own. Oh, is it not charging? Yeah, but I'm not getting a charge though. Oh,
No,
you got it
unplugged.
you put mine in. Oh, shit.
Well.
Yay, okay, we're good. All right. So that's how this thing is being controlled. You create a task, each of the tasks. So if I go to wherever this guy here, turn off light. There's the task name. This task name has to match exactly how it's spelled in a Excel sheet, because that's how it pulls it. You attach the task, and once it's turned, that component activates. Once it activates, then you can make your blueprint based off that. For example, on gripped, which is when the player grips this object. I'm going to flip the lights, and what I'm checking for, hey, task, am I currently active? If so, then I want to do the following. If not, the player just flips the lights on and off. That's all he's doing. What I'm doing is that I'm checking to see if my task is active, which means it's the current one running off that cell sheet. If so, you only have to do one thing. Call task complete. That's the loop. You can check to see when you're active, and then if you've done what you need to be get done, then you call complete, which once complete's called, it will then go to the next task. That's it.
If this stuff is overwhelming and you're having trouble metabolizing it, we will be around on Friday.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna come in on Friday, I sit down and I cover the sit down with you, walk you through it. We can make it in tasks quickly, so you.
Sure, we can make another one on Friday together, but this should be pretty straightforward. Is that you add a component. At any point, you could check to see if I'm currently active. In this case, all I'm doing is that you could do like an on gripped or like on event begin overlap, one of those. You just want to make sure you do the due diligence and say, check to see, hey, am I currently active? If so, then I'm going to call myself I'm completed, and then just runs to the next one. That's it. Now, there are other things in here if you want to go back and look. The most confusing part I wouldn't worry about is this right here. And this is just controlling the little outline thing I'm doing, which you can come back. I actually now have it baked into the task system, so you shouldn't actually have to do this anymore. The important part is just these two pieces right here, which is checking to see if your task is active. Oops. And then at some point call complete. And finally, just make sure somewhere. There it is. Either you make it for all the blueprint or at one point you need to write down the tasking. And that has to match exactly how it's spelled in the Excel sheet.
That works in instance, so we don't have to do it in the blueprint itself.
You could do it if you want, if it's just a single blueprint, you could do blueprint. Since I have multiple flip lights,
That's why I was gonna say.
that's why I did it in the scene, because then it's instanced. Because yeah, I actually have two light tasks in the scene. One right here, and then the other one's over in this room.
So should we just do it that way in case?
It all depends on your setup. If there's only going to be one, then that's fine. But like, for example, since I've used this twice, this one's called turn off light 2. That's it. Any questions for all of you besides some of the wheel floaters? There's more systems I'd like you to work on, but for the majority of everybody here, that's all you're doing. We just need simple things for the player to do and simple things that will scare the player. If you need help with any of them, how to interact with the player, reach out to me. I can do that. Yes.
The way it seems like it's set up, you could theoretically turn the lights off before you get to the task, and then turn them on and begin.
Yeah.
Your sequence turn the lights back on automatically, like what the task is engaged or
Sorry, say that again.
So the way that it's set up, if you turn the lights off before you get to turn the lights on.
Yeah.
Task, the way that it's set up, it seems like you can turn them on without actually complete the task and turning them off. Oh,
Is it checking to see if the switch was flipped?
Oh, I don't think I'm checking it right now. No, I mean, we can make sure that when the task gets active, then I'll just like, I could do, for example, if you know event dispatchers, for example, I can make sure that when the task first starts, I can call flip lights, and I'll probably just set a toggle, just make sure it's on when this task currently gets active. That would be a way of doing it. Good question. But no, right now, yeah, you could flip it off and then come back and then flip on later. But for here, what I'd probably do is just make sure the lights are on. So when they come back, then they can flip it. Yeah.
Right, but it, don't work on lighting. The lighting, so it's obviously lights that are already back. Turn it on and off, or how is it?
So this is, again, all it's doing is how I control the lights here. I create an array called that holds lights, just an array of lights. I stored off their starting intensity. So whatever you as an artist set the lights on currently in the level, I just store it off into an array. Such that when I do the flip lights, If it was on, I'm going to turn them all to 0. If I was off and now flipping them on, I just set it to what the previous value was. That's what I was doing there.
And I would also say, don't worry too much initially
Yes.
about that. That's more long-term knowledge. Your goal will be to set like the baseline.
Yeah.
What should look like a clear, never interacting with it. What's that line like? And then everything is on there above it or below it.
Yeah, I made it such that whatever you set the lighting to be in the level, I'm storing off those values such that if I need to go back to it, I can go back to it. So this has nothing to do with the task part, but yeah, I was just doing my due diligence that I save whatever the current lighting setting was.
Could you jump into Perforce?
Absolutely.
Everybody see where look to get into Perforce.
Yep.
So you should all be in this project by the end of the week, actually by tomorrow morning, everybody should be in there. But when you come in, you're gonna, whatever else you have in Perforce, you're gonna see a Doc Studio repository. And in that repository, you'll see under Jarvis and you'll see Sankofa Seeds. Actually, you'll see all of this stuff, but these are the two that you're gonna be concerned with. For your team, if you're on under Jarvis, then this is what you want to have in your workspace. If you're in Sankofa Seasons, you're gonna want to have that in your workspace. When you check things in, please make verbose check-ins,
Yes.
right? So if you've keep track of the changes you've made as you're making things, and then when you check in, say, I did all this stuff, right? I created a sequence named blah 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 that does this, and it's located in this folder and whatever, so that we know if something does blow up, we know exactly where to look, and we have to sit there and fiddle through things to find stuff.
Now, the last thing, I assume most of you guys here have used Perforce. If not, then
Who
you
has
will.
Perforce?
Like,
You're in Capstone.
yeah, but we did it like once, and then ever since then we did like GitHub.
Okay.
All right, I'll open up the other one while this is going on.
You open it?
I'm just going to do a quick literal demo of what you should be doing in Perforce.
Because Unreal interacts with Perforce directly.
Yes.
So once you've logged into Perforce, you should be able to log into Unreal. It'll give you your Perforce information, and you should be able to do all of your check-ins and checkouts inside of Unreal. So that's one of the nice things about that. With the exception of that, the CSV file,
Yes.
the Excel file that we're working with.
But here's the same steps you do in Perforce every time. You will download Perforce. You will get to this window. You will create a new workspace. A workspace is what's on your current computer. So, for example, mine is, I believe it's somewhere on my desktop. I path it to a place on my desktop. I called mine MSI laptop, and I hit save. And again, you won't have all of these, but one of them now should say Dog Studio. It will get mapped to it. You will hit get latest on the project. You will open the project. So it's the same steps every time. You get latest, open project.
Yeah, anytime you sit down to work, get latest first.
Yep.
That's, that is like your ritual. Get latest, see if anything is.
You will then go to revision control, which is in the bottom right corner.
Second part.
Yeah.
Bottom right corner, revision control.
Connect to revision, select Perforce. You will put in your data. Now, it'll be your DePaul login. So the server is always the same for any class you're in here at DePaul, which is perforce.dpu.depaul.edu. I'm currently recording this, by the way, so you can watch this later. Your username will be your DePaul username, but all lowercase. And then it should find my workspace. I've successfully connected. I'm just going to go move an object. Yes. One slight thing, the P4 ignore file is here at home when you first download it, run this command. So when you install Perforce, when you have the options installed, there will be one option that's besides everything else turn on, like obviously it's done before Perforce. One of the extra options says the word command in it. Make sure that's installed because that'll allow you to do command line arguments, which then you will run this thing called open command line window. And this command will be the same. I'll type it into Discord, but it's P4 set all caps P4 ignore equals dot P4 ignore. You run it once. If nothing yells at you, you're fine. This will set up the ignore file, not the push up, the save, the intermediate, all this other junk that does not need to be there, which will cause a bunch of issues. You only have to run that once on any new computer you run on. You just have to do that once. So once you're logged in here, I'm just going to make an edit. I'm just going to move this table just an inch.
Also, that's something you need to do.
What?
Is make that, one file.
Oh, yeah, one file per instance. I'll make that change. I'll then hit save, which again, this will actually be one file per instance, so it probably won't say collaboration center. It'll just say that object. I will check it out. Once I'm done for the day, it's always the same steps. I'm going to click revision control. I'm going to submit, see what pops up, moved, desk, submit. I'm going to check one more time, just make sure everything's up. Cool. You're going to escape then. There might be a pop-up saying, hey, there's something unsafe. Go ahead and save it. You will then go to Perforce. I will chase you down. At the end of the day, that triangle should be blue. If it is not blue, you do not leave. You make sure that this thing comes back to blue.
This triangle, not this triangle.
Yeah, sorry, this triangle right here needs to be blue. If it's any other color, you need to resolve something. So the pending change list is kind of like the train station. When you make edits, you move it into the pending change list. You're loading up the train. When you finally hit submit, you will then send this train off to the server. But there's sometimes you will have stuff left in the train station you did not submit. So you need to do one or two things. Submit it or undo it. Do I want this to stay there, or I hit revert, undo everything? If the triangle's blue, you're good. The last thing you can run to double check if you got everything, right click the root of the project and select the option reconcile offline work. This will recursively go through your entire project and see if there's anything different. Which again, in this case shouldn't say anything. There are no files need to be recorded, reconciled. It could bring up a massive list. Make sure you look through the list. Make sure the files in there are stuff that you might have changed. Big ones, if you see any file that's coming from the saved or intermediate folder, those shouldn't go up. You didn't set up your ignore file. If this is good and the blue triangle is no longer there, you are done. And then once you're ready to go back in, same steps. It's always these same steps over and over and over again. Does that make sense? I have this recorded. You can watch back later. The steps will never change.
It's right, it's first to them.
What if somebody makes a revision, after you've already, in a sense, pulled, you started working, somebody else
So-
submitted something?
If you, when you pull down the project, go in the project, turn on revision control, and you're working on a file, and then you hit, let's say, check out, you will get notified if somebody else is currently working on this. If someone else currently working on this, you need to message them. They'll say who's currently working on this. Because now you are out of date. You need them to submit up and then work from their revision. Otherwise, you have an option, which is that you can overwrite what they did, which I wouldn't recommend because then you just undid what everything they did. You, just like anything else, when you're working on something, you will want to hit, when you hit the save and get the notification, there'll be an option to make writable. That doesn't do anything. All that does is just makes it editable on your computer, which is actually bad. You shouldn't actually turn things writable. The only thing you actually can turn writable right now is that Excel sheet, which you'll need to turn writable.
And because we're gonna be switching the project to one file per instance.
Yeah, we shouldn't have these
instances of
collisions.
That kind of a problem could be next to no. Most cases, you check something out when you're working on something, it should be locked down to you. Nobody else should check it out while you're check it out.
You will,
With the exception of a text file.
yeah, the only file right now that you can go in and turn off the read only, because Perforce turns everything on the read only. That's how it's checking to see if things are checked out or not, is the Excel sheet. That's the only file. Yeah, that is the only file in this project you can turn it off because you might want to edit and change things as you run. Wait, then once you're done, then you can submit, but that's fine. Everything else you don't make writable. If someone has it checked out, message them on Discord saying, hey, I need to make edit this. How long will it take you to do that? That keeps everything in line. Otherwise, we're going to override each other's work. Sound good? Any questions? Yes.
Just one more thing, when logging in, you said no tabs on
It's going to be your username in all lowercase.
numbers.
It's exactly what your name is, just all lowercase. I
Yeah,
don't know
so
why,
if
but
your
that's
name is Johnny, if your username is like Johnny123@default.edu, maybe lowercase Johnny123@default.edu.
correct. Actually, it's just Johnny123. You don't have to put the
Yeah.
@default. It's just the first part. Yeah.
If you have an existing workspace, you use the same workspace or make a new workspace.
I use my own workspace, but you can create your own new one. That's fine. Whenever you create a new workspace, you will need to run that P4 command line, which I'll post that in Discord what that line is. Just open command line, copy and paste it, run it. If nothing happens after you hit it, it just creates a new line. It worked. If anything pops up, most likely you didn't install it when you first downloaded Perforce.
Double check by typing keyboard noise.
What's that?
You type keyboard noise, it'll show you everything that's set to keyboard.
Yeah.
noise.
And yeah, if you want to double check, again, you can open it up and see what's here. These are just all the shit I don't want pushed up.
Also, I got a second part of the answer to that question, Robert, is that I think if you have a workspace that's tied to a different repository, you're probably better off making a new workspace for this repository. But I think
Which is fine. Yeah, that's no,
it keeps it clean.
yeah, I keep all mine because that's the just all way of doing it. But yeah, you can make a new workspace that's not an issue. The only one is that when you create the new workspace, please run that ignore file. Do not push up the saved and intermediate because that'll cause other issues. For C++ people, when you're using Visual Studio is the only one that you'll also turn off read only, and this is literally and only people that's using C++. You'll want to turn the binaries off read only as well. That's the only other one. But that's only if you're touch C++, which only probably the will floaters might touch. Everybody else, no.
So, I'm coming to the end of class.
Yes, it
I
is.
will put the Discord invite up inside of, your group D2Ls. And then you can get on the Discord and we'll start talking